Good morning, good morning, good morning. I am your boy, R.W. Coolins. Welcome, welcome, welcome. First and foremost, giving honor to God who allows me to come at you in this manner on a weekly basis. And today, our first episode, our first try at this new endeavor, Soul Sessions, a Black woman's perspective. That's what we're going to be talking about this morning. I got some panelists that I have on with me, but before we get to them, let's go ahead and get a call in number 844-904-2665. That's 844-904-2665. No matter what the situation is, let your voice be heard. Always ask to say what you mean what you say. We come in as friends, we leave as family. That's what we do here all the time under the R.W. Coolins umbrella. This is a R.W. Coolins presents a Black woman, Soul Sessions, a Black woman's perspective. And we're going to be branching out to a Black man's perspective. We're going to do a joint. So this is what we're doing here. Big things, moving in, moving out. And let's go ahead and we got some good mornings already. T. Reed Stafford, let's go. Good morning. Appreciate you. Big Al, good morning, y'all. Appreciate you, brother. Willis Cheney, good morning, good brother. Good morning, my brother. Good morning. Let's go ahead and bring our panelists in. And we're going to get them in. Hey, everybody. How y'all doing?
Hi. Good morning.
Hi. Good morning.
Trent Branch, good morning, my brother. Good morning. Appreciate you. All right. So, y'all see these beautiful Black women on our screen here, and we're going to have a conversation with them. Look at all them smiles. I feel so blessed this morning. Look at that. So, before we get started, we have Michelle Summerall, Pamela Garrett Collins, Julie Keener Piro, and Judith Mills. All good friends of mine, I can say. One way or another. But what I want to do first, before we even get started, is allow them to give you a little introduction of who they are, and then we're going to jump into this. So I'm going to start with Julie Piro. Julie Piro, we're going to start with you. Give a little introduction of who you are and what you're all about. Let's go.
Good morning, Julie Piro, originally from Jersey, I reside in Atlanta, Georgia. I've been here since the 90s, so almost consider myself a Georgian, but still Jersey girl at life. I work in local government here in Atlanta for the last 20 years in finance. Right now I work for the city of Chamblee. I've been there for 5 years. And that's all I know is being a public servant. I've never worked in corporate, always been in the local government sector.
All right. And that is Julie Piro. Michelle Summerall, let's go ahead and go to you. Everybody should know you if they tune in enough. You go ahead and give us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. So Michelle Summerall, I live in Georgia also, Julie, down in Macon. I am an author and a certified life coach. Day job, I'm an HR manager in corporate America and have been for, over 30 years. So.
All right. Next, Pamela Garrett Collins, talk to us.
Hi, I am Pamela Garrett Collins. I am a real estate broker here in Las Vegas. I also work in a real estate school in the admissions office. And I've been in Las Vegas since 9/11 by way of New York. I'm a New Yorker. So, but I'm loving Las Vegas here. The weather is beautiful. Enjoy what I do, trying to transition now into the nursing field. So I'm getting that going. And that's it.
All right. And then last but not least, Judy Mills, talk to us. I think your mic's on mute.
It is. Good morning, everybody.
All right.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So my name is Judith Mills. I am a retired U.S. Air Force veteran. I currently work for the Department of Homeland Security, their Cyber Security Infrastructure Security Agency, as a senior HR specialist. And I am currently residing more so in Chicago, but between Chicago and Houston, Texas. So I'm excited to be a part of this panel. Thank you so much, Rodney.
Thank you for joining. I want to say thanks to all you for finding time in your busy schedules this morning to come on. And we're just going to jump into this. So I did this starting with, and it took me a while to come up with something that could just jump out. A Black woman's perspective. Soul Sessions, a Black woman's perspective, because as I mentioned to you guys behind the scenes, I do a lot of barbershop talks where we get all the men's ideas, understanding what they're going through, mental health, those type things. But I wanted to talk to and have some women join in so we could get y'all's perspective on some things. But from the start, I want to put it in this perspective. And we've asked this to the men, but I want to ask it straight to the women today. Are Black women underappreciated? Feel free. Don't all answer at once. I mean, hey, whoever wants to jump in first.
I would definitely say I feel like yes, for sure. I mean, definitely in the workplace. I think and pretty much in all types of different avenues, workplace, as it relates to politics. But I definitely see a lot in the professional roles. But I think that we're definitely bringing it, and we're winning. We're definitely winning and showing up and showing out. So I think people are starting to see us and hear us. But I believe I definitely believe that. I feel like we have to, I don't want to say mask ourselves at times, but somewhat. Sometimes you have to put on play somebody else. You have to role play at times to be able to get yourself in certain positions or get seats at certain tables. So I definitely believe so.
I want to jump in. I'm glad you brought that up because I want to get into this a little later on, but I brought up something a couple of weeks ago called code switching that a lot of people don't think happens. So I want to get into that, but I'm glad you touched on that. So who wants to chime in next about whether Black women, and I say underappreciated, or can it be taken for granted? Feel free.
I'll jump in. I think we are undervalued. Underappreciated, yes, there are a lot of inequities, so we definitely catch that. But I think we're undervalued more than underappreciated. Like I want to be appreciated as anyone in the workplace or just in the community would be. Are we at the bottom rung? Probably, yeah, probably with that. But I want to be valued for the what I bring to the table.
When you say undervalued, do we, and this is just a question for me, do we find ourselves seeking value from others more than we value ourselves sometimes, maybe? Could that play a part in it, or?
I'm thinking of that more in terms of equity, because I value myself pretty highly.
Well, I figured we all do. I just wanted to ask that question.
Yes, I don't know that I'm seeking it. I just want to have a fair shot and be treated equitably, be recognized equitably. So,
Pamela, Julie.
I would say yes. I guess it depends on the situation. I know in my current role right now, I feel pretty valued. And this is probably the first job that I have felt valued. But in the past, I have not, and have outworked, bosses and coworkers and just been passed over for promotions and stuff like that. But in this role, I have been kind of elevated. And in our culture, there is probably out of maybe 15 directors, more than half are women of color. So we are pretty much running the city of Chandler. And so that's a high compliment for my organization. But yes, I have felt undervalued in other roles and in society.
Okay. Ms. Pamela.
Same here. I think it's depends on the situation. For me personally, I have dealt with a lot of being undervalued. I think in the circles that I'm in, it's more of having the token Black. But then once they see what I can do, then all of a sudden you become a little bit more valued. But the position was just to put somebody in place so we can say we met quota. So that, knowing that and seeing that, but you have to survive at the same time, and you just make it work. But right now, for me, it's more of a transition because I told you I work in a school. I'm in the admissions office, and now taken over by corporate. They have their look, they have their values, and what the company should look like. And that transition for those new people coming in and being promoted, and you just kind of step back and say, okay, wait a minute, what's going on here? Now there's a transition in the company to meet the whole corporate look, their values, and what they have in mind for their company. So yeah, I think feeling undervalued is an understatement.
Well, now each one of you had touched on being underappreciated. Most of you, if not but all of you, talked about your employment, your job, where you work. Now I'm going to ask this question. It may start a little controversy, but
Don't do
it
it.
is what it is.
Don't do it.
Do you feel underappreciated in our community by Black men? Let's be real this morning. I mean, we can talk about the business side of it, but what about when you're at home? What about when you're in your community dealing with people that look like me? How do you feel you're treated there? Because we've had this discussion with one-on-ones here and there, but let's talk about it. Anybody?
Hey, I'll jump out there. I'm single, a single mom, so I feel definitely underappreciated by my daughter. But outside of that, just in the community interactions, I feel appreciated. But it's because I'm not coming home, probably to someone who can underappreciate me, except my child.
Yeah.
So
Anybody?
I need to take the laptop. I need to go back upstairs in the room so Katie can hear this part of the question.
No. This ain't got nothing to do with him today. This got to do with you and your feelings. Let it go.
So I definitely think that I do believe that there are times where we are definitely underappreciated. I think sometimes, whether it's intentional or unintentional, at times it may be, as it relates to maybe relationship or maybe our kids or something like that. Sometimes it may be unintentional, and sometimes it could be that we put ourselves in the positions where, because we're just doers, we do it all. Like, we are the queens, that we are the foundation to keep things moving, keep things going. I mean, we're the doers. So with that being said, sometimes I think that, yeah, maybe we are underappreciated, but at the same time, I think sometimes it may be unintentional, and it might be a more of a sense where it's unintentionally taken for granted. I do think in the community still at times, the way we still get those looks, that second guess. Even in stores, you still get that. Do you think this person, can they afford it? Maybe they can't. And they want to wait on another customer that doesn't look like us, who really can't afford it, but they just assume they can because of the way they look. I think there's just so many different areas of where we are underappreciated, but I'm gonna sum it up and just say I think that at times it's more unintentional though. I don't think it's intentional. Not always.
Okay.
Because we're so strong and we just make things seem easy than what they may be.
And what do you attest that to?
Because I think it's our natural being of
Survival?
us. Yes.
Survival.
Preservation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also who we are as women. We're nurturers,
Yes.
first and foremost.
Yes.
So it's in us to be who we are, helping, giving, doing, making sure things are right. So that's our DNA.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Miss Julie?
I think, I have most of you all know, I've been married for about 5 years. Not about, I've been married for 5 years. Hi, Reggie. And I came into a very unique situation. Prior to marrying Reggie, was a single, no children, environment to Reggie brought a full family. And so coming into a role where I was a bonus mother, a bonus grandmother, I mean, I went from single to grandmother status in a matter of 5 minutes of saying I do. And so that's been a big transition for me to be able to be a good role model for the younger generation and for his children who are in their early 30s and starting out. So I feel very valued by them, but it's, trying to transition into that role of the single independent, got to do it myself, to the nurturer, the encourager, has been challenging, but I think I've done it pretty well and feel very valued by my family.
Well, you wear it well. You wear it well.
and also, just so you know, with all that's going on with work and, obviously being a grandparent, of 4, I have taken time now in getting some self-care and saying self-care is not selfish. And so taking the times for the facials, taking the times for the massages, taking times for my workouts so that I can stay even keeled and not go off the handle because I'm under stress or have not taken care of myself. So I think as Black women, we need to start taking better care of ourselves, even, going to the hair salon regularly and just having that downtime and alone time is important so that we can continue to be those nurturers and givers that Pamela mentioned earlier.
Right. Yeah. But let me put this in there because I'm gonna ask this. And I get it all, but we're all at a certain age. I'm not gonna throw ages out there, but we're all at a certain age where most of you as Black women, most of you 4, don't deal with the generation of the B word and the like of that, or being called that in the circles you may travel, or being accepting of hearing someone else call you that. I'm going out on a limb here, just saying. But in that, what do you see maybe needs to happen at the younger generation below you to feel the way you feel as far as being worthy, being accepted, and not answering to names that aren't of them, if that makes sense?
I honestly think our generation probably needs to step into that mentor role. I know I've had a mentor my entire life, and I think we probably need to do that so that they know what they need to do. I think the generation behind us just doesn't know. And we have to lean back just like our generation before us and say, hey, this is the way you need to go. And they have to want the advice. A lot of, we were all in our 20s and 30s. I know what I'm doing. I don't need nobody. But at some point you hit that wall and say, well, maybe I do need to talk to somebody or have somebody's advice, and not take it to the point where it's criticism, but it's, it's sometimes it's tough love.
Right.
And I think that's probably what we need to do in our generation is look at those in their 20s and 30s and say, hey, I've been there, and try to relate to them and show them the way. But again, it's got to be a two-way street. It's got to be an ebb and flow. Can't just preach at them, because we remember being that age. We didn't want to be preached at either. We just wanted to have a conversation with someone and say, hey, what about this? What about that? So
somebody trying to get somebody trying to get some brownie points. You are very much appreciated, Mrs. Kiro. Okay.
Still on the honeymoon stage, y'all.
And James Ballard, good morning. And you touched on something, Julie, when you said mentoring.
Yep.
Because I was looking for something yesterday before we had this conversation about, because we always see mentoring for young men, but it's not as advertised for young women. And that's why I asked that question, is because where's the disconnect, I guess? And you kind of touched on it, because I'm gonna read this statistic real quick. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, between 2018 and 2019, Black women made up 68% of associate degrees, 66% of bachelor's degrees, 71% of master degrees, and 65% of doctoral, medical, and dental degrees. And I bring those statistics up to show that, and we've heard it many times, Black women are the most educated demographic in the United States of America, right? And when you look at these numbers, it states that 68%, 66, 71, 65. 68 is just associate's degrees alone. So when I asked that question about the younger generation, what are we doing to bring them up? There's not a problem with us becoming educated or anything like that. I think the disconnect is somewhere in the growing from, being that teenager, not knowing their way, to getting to the point of, I'm going to school, I'm gonna get my education, I'm gonna be somebody in society. Just out of curiosity, for all four of you, when did that switch? When did that button switch for you? As far as knowing this is what I need to do.
I don't think I had a choice.
Mm,
Leaving my mom's house. I mean, you're going to college or you're going
Same
in the
here.
military. And my dad was not having the military, so it was you going to college. And for the other question about mentoring, modeling, I think is also important. So I just try to model, carry myself, and talk to people about what I do, what my desires are, and let them see me doing that, so they can see that, oh wow, there is someone that looks like me, at that table or doing that thing that I want to do, trying to live out her dreams. So modeling, I think, is also really important.
okay. Judy?
I definitely like it hit on as far as the mentoring. Definitely, I feel like with the younger generation, this generation now, it's so important that they do have someone from our generation as mentors, someone that they can have open dialogue with. I think that with social media, I think with social media and also with the music today, that they tend to accept, especially our young ladies, they tend to accept things that we would never accept back at that time when we were at that age, let alone now. But I think that because of social media, because of music outlets, that they accept things that they really should not accept. And I think it's I think because also we have a lot of in some of our urban communities, not speaking for all, but we do have we have great grandmothers at my age. I don't have a problem saying I'm 57. We have great grandmothers that are my age, and I say that to say you have, and especially like I live in Chicago now, so you have a lot of where you're 14, 15 when you had your child, and then your child now 14, 15 have their child. So who's teaching them? Their children. So they're not getting that guidance that we got coming up from our grandmothers and our great grandmothers. That old school where where you're gonna be respected, you're gonna stay strong and be respected, and you're not gonna take, certain things from, anyone calling you outside of your name or certain things. So I think it's really important to have that a mentor in your life. I know for my daughter's 23. I only have one child, but I feel like sometimes I have like 10 because she called me on FaceTime yesterday with one of her friends, and she got her first apartment and she had some stuff going on and she just didn't know what to do. She has a mother. Her mother is younger than me. Her mother's probably 40, I think. Her mother's younger than me. She could have went to her mother, but they called me. But I get that a lot because I've always taken that time with the kids and I poured into them. And as much as sometimes I think my daughter, we have a great relationship, but I may get on her nerves sometimes because I'm in it where I'm trying to help her, groom her, mentor her. Her friends always tell her, I wish that I had a mother like you because they don't have that same interest that I have, and as that I have in her. So I think it's really important that we mentor, and it may be somebody else's kid, even though we know there's a line that we may have to walk because there's certain things, especially when they were younger, when her friends would come around, there's certain things I know I couldn't share with them or couldn't communicate with them a certain kind of way when there were certain conversations out of respect because I don't know, what level their parents would communicate with them when they were younger. Now they're older. So we have open communication. I think it's important that we let them be full transparent conversations. and not be so quick to judge and react and make it a teaching moment instead of a lecture.
Shame.
Yeah.
Shame.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be a conversation, dude. You can't,
Yes.
you got to do this. And when I was
Yes.
your age, I didn't do this. And it just has to be an open conversation. Hey, how's things going today? What's
Yep.
going on in your world? Well, this, and this. Well, what do you think about this?
Yep.
So you have to wait for them to ask you for advice. I learned that from my husband. He was very right. He's like, when my children ask for advice, I give it to them. I don't solicit it because they're grown and they have to figure things out on their own. And so sometimes it's easier said than done because you just want to go into that because your parents did. It's like, well, you need to do this. I still hear my dad saying that today. Well, you should have done this. You should have done it. Well, wait, well, Dad, I didn't. So but it's a different generation. I mean, their thought process is much different than probably any other generation that we've ever had.
Yeah.
I think because
That's
there's an open camera, with the social
Yeah.
media, like they're just, yeah, everything they do, but they make that decision. It's amazing me though how when I come across a few of my daughter's friends that aren't on Instagram and social media, and I'm like, really? And they're like, no, but most of them are, but then there's some that are not. We didn't hear about nothing until we got to school the next day or whatever the case may be. But before you get to school here, it's all a million people have already seen it and heard it.
it's, so let me ask this. And when you say that about the social media, right? Is it that they're having the same issues we had? It's just magnified. And that's why it seems like it's so, because it's magnified, it's bigger. You know what I mean? Compared to, some of them go through the same issues we go through. Some of them are dealing with the same things, but we didn't have that magnification that they have. So could that be more of not the issue, but because it's more magnified, it's more visible? Because we all struggled somehow, some way. Our parents had certain ways. Like you just mentioned, Michelle mentioned, she didn't have a choice. She knew she was going to college. But there's a lot of people that it's like, you ain't going to college because we can't afford to send you to college. So those, and I know I've kind of jumbled those together, but Miss Pamela, let me ask you this question from your perspective. When you see young girls, talk to young girls, or hear conversation of younger girls, the B word and every other curse word and in those interactions, not only does it or can it make you feel uncomfortable, but what is the action that you would like to take that you're hesitant to take because of the environment or any of those things?
Well, of course, you want to, be your parent and say, "Wait, what are you doing? This is not right. You're a lady." I hear it all the time, and what I do, because I hear the B word and it's like that's
Yeah.
cool, and it's like I look like, no, that's not cute. I don't like that. It's not me, and that's not you, and you shouldn't say. And just my expressions alone when they do that, I think they get the message. Because I try not to be judgmental because I know that's their era and they're accepting that among themselves. So my expression of disappointment will make you not do that. And that's what the response is without me having to go into the lecture. Um, so I stand back and listen. And if I have to interject, then I will because I feel that strongly about it. But everyone knows that my silence and my expressions says a lot more than me being verbal. So that's how I counteract that kind of situation. But my thing is, I allow the individuals to speak and not shut down, but they know when something to me seems offensive and they'll say, excuse my language, or they'll apologize for it because they want to say it for, for a reaction. And you don't have to do that in my mind, and they know that now. But yes, I get that in my environment a lot, where they want to bring me in, but using those profanities to me is not necessary. And it elevates them when they can speak without using that, and they see the responses that they get, and I see it more that they transition from that kind of conversation to speak to me or anybody else. So to me, I think role modeling now comes into play. Like Michelle mentioned, instead of me being a mentor, I'm more of a role model, and they see the results of that, just saying little or changing your verbiage, especially as a female, and then a female of color.
Mhm.
And let me tell you why I asked that question. Because we had this kind of skimmed on this with the
Yeah.
men's barbershop talk. And both instances in this conversation, that instance is we're hesitant. We're hesitant to interject because we don't know how it's going to be received. And that's where we get with this conversation and we got with the men. So I guess as men and women of color at a point that we've gotten to, maybe it's time for us to sit down and come up with an attack plan on how to deal with this. Because what I'm saying is a lot of what we're doing is hands off, more than being hands on in the fact of trying to mold them, not to make them who we want them to be, but mold them in the direction of where, as they grow in society, it's not as hard of a battle as it's going to be anyway. You know what I'm saying? So that's something I think we need to think about. But let's move on, because I want to ask, unless somebody has something else they want to add on that.
Let me just throw in. I think all that started with our music back in the day, when hip hop started. Until Queen Latifah said, "Let's stop calling each other B's and H's," or so that's when we kind of started to rise up out of that, because it was used and it was accepted. And now this music, loosely called music, is trending back to some of the raunchy and degrading terms. So, and now with it being amplified with the internet and all of social media, these kids are picking it up and using those things to come out of. But I think we started that. So.
And
Julie.
I think it goes back to even some of it is, once again, parenting and mentoring, because what you may see in your household that is accepted, and so now you're just delivering that same what you learned behavior.
I'll say yes and no on that, Judy, and not to push back, but you have some kids that have a household that doesn't allow that.
Yeah. No, exactly. No. I'm saying in some households that you have,
Right.
Of course, there's some.
Right.
It goes both ways with anything you have. You have some where it's not that, but they still do it. And part of those that do it, that's not in their household where they experience that behavior and think it's acceptable. Again, I relay it back to social media. I relay it back to music, or just your peers that you're interacting with within your environment. That peer pressure where they're coming, they're talking like this and all that. So now you talking like that. It's kind of like what you're talking about, the code switching. You adapt to that,
I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you very much for that transition, my dear. So now let's talk about the code switching for a minute. Well, let's give a call-in number in case somebody wants to call in. 844-904-2665. That's 844-904-2665. You want to comment, or if you want to join in on the conversation, call in on the number. We'll bring you in. If you got something you really want to say. Pressure bust pipes, Russell Jenkins. So with code switching, and I talked about this about 2 weeks ago, I think it was. And I'm gonna ask all y'all, and y'all just say yes or no, and then we'll get into the conversation. Do you, each one of you, put on a performance in your workplace?
Define performance.
Say what?
Define performance.
Code switching, being completely different than you are around your girls, or any of that type thing.
I would say yes, because you could be on the phone with. It's just no different when we answer the phone at the house when somebody's calling us business. You're like, hi, how may I help you? Then if Pam's calling me like, hey, what's up, girl? You know, so we do it all the time in the workplace. Even when I'm on teams talking to my supervisor versus me talking to one of my actual colleagues, it's a different conversation. I can get off teams from us just coming out of a meeting, all professional. As soon as I get on with her, it's like it changes. And even growing up, I think visiting down south and being around your family members that may communicate or talk a certain way, you start to talk like that while you're there. I mean, my daughter used to do it all the time. She'd switch up because she didn't want them to. They would always tease her and say that she talked white, and so she would adapt to it while she was there. And I'm like, girl, you better turn that back off because you gotta articulate.
Julie, you mentioned what was the question you asked, Julie? In what? What'd you say?
I think, what did you ask me? You said, I said define the situation or define.
Yeah. So what you asked, let me ask this question, and this is for everybody, but I want to go to you since you brought it up. So would we consider it code switching or would we consider it being professional?
I mean, it could probably be both.
Yeah.
Could be both. I mean, I think I learned it I think my father taught us, because my father worked for AT&T for 25 years in the corporate, and there's things that you can and cannot say at work.
Yes.
So when you're talking to your friends, are you being professional or are you code switching at that point? I'm just throwing it out there.
It depends on what friends I'm talking to.
If I'm talking depends on the conversation, probably.
Yeah. I mean, I have friends at different levels.
Mm-hmm. So I asked that.
Look, if I'm talking to my inner circle versus an associate, it may be something different. So it just depends on the situation. That's why I said what situation are we doing the code switching? Because there's different levels to me.
And there are, and that's why I'm asking. I mean, I got the same perspective as you, but I gotta push back. I can't agree with y'all. We gotta keep conversation going. But my question, what I'm asking in a way is, so, and I wrote these down. It says, and I asked about professionalism, but let's go back to something you just mentioned. So, depending on who you're talking to, the environment you're in, all those things play a factor in it, right? And one of the things I've always said is, as Black folks, African Americans, however you want to label us, we're chameleons. I consider us to be chameleons. However, a lot of people will take when you say we're chameleons and say that we're not true to ourselves because we're changing to the environments that we're in.
We've always had to do that, though.
But and that's why I want to have this conversation. Exactly. That's why I want to have this conversation, because in most cases, it's not the fact that we're selling out or we're in Uncle Tom. Now it depends on the verbiage you're using, what you're talking about, and we'll get in that because I don't like using those terms. But a lot of things that we do in the professional atmosphere, in our inner workings compared to what we do with our friends, someone not knowing who you are could look at you as the Uncle Tom, the sellout, or those verbiages that they use. That's why I'm a strong proponent not using those words when we talk about people, because you don't know their struggle. You don't know the environment they have to operate in. So, Pamela, you brought up the fact of where in your workplace, you got these just younger generation, new management, all these things. Have you had to change how you function, how you deal, and what verbiage you use in that environment to adapt?
Yes and no. Yes. Well, no, because I've been there so long and everybody knows me, and I don't have to do, when I first started, I had to look a certain way so I could fit in, or appearance, the way you speak and carry yourself. And now that I've proven who I am and what my work ethics are, they know me. So now it's just kind of fitting into the more of what you were talking about, being undervalued. But no, I don't have to code switch anymore. I did
Anymore.
all my life I had to fight, and here I established myself here, and now it's more of me trying to understand them because they're a younger generation in the way they speak and look and think about things. But no, it's actually them trying to work around me as a result. And it's strange to see that. I don't have to do it anymore. I can do my hair anywhere I want. I can be natural. I could be this. I could wear this, and nobody says a word. Oh, I like that. You know, it's different. The role has changed right now, and it almost feels empowering that I don't have to code switch there.
Mm.
But
I
in
want to say
the
this to Miss.
beginning, 10 years ago, I had to you know, fit in. It was just survival mode for me. That's what it equated to me. And instead of code switching, I need to survive to pay my bills. So I
Yeah.
need to make this work.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the comments that are coming in are saying they would rather use adapt rather than change. The word adapting to the environment. I wouldn't say change, but rather adapt. Terrence Collins, I agree with
This
Trent.
is
It's
true.
adaptability.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what I said.
So
Yeah, you have to adapt to it.
I want to throw this to Michelle because Michelle has a teenage daughter.
God bless you.
That's right.
So Michelle, in that situation, do you see your daughter at that age having to per se code switch or adapt to her environments or become a chameleon at the age she is right now in order to fit in?
Yes. Short answer, yes. I see her with different groups of friends and how she communicates with different groups of friends, even how she communicates when she's giving a presentation at school versus how she might just chat with, a group of friends in the gym or something like that. So, yes. And I don't know how she picked it up. I don't know that we actually had a conversation about it. She may have seen me adapt. I like adapting versus code switching. So,
Yeah, me too.
she may have seen that, but you speak to different people in different ways. I think we're all intelligent, experienced. We've been through some things, we've learned. So it's not the message that we're delivering, it's how we deliver it to the group we're delivering it.
And you just said something. You don't know where she learned it from, maybe watching you or anything. But I'm a true proponent that we're born with this.
Yeah,
We're born with it only because
yeah,
it's not something that you have to be taught. It's not something that other nationalities per se have to master or have to do.
Right.
But I think it's in us because we understand the struggle and the plight that we're going to have to deal with consistently just because of our melanin content. And because of that, what we do is we go into survival mode. And part of our survival mode is, and like I say, a chameleon is to adapt in each environment so you don't get devoured in that environment per se. Yeah.
I know that I definitely, like you said, even her baby from watching Michelle. I know Kara probably from watching me, but I also definitely taught her. I would say to her because of the generation now, and sometimes in how they even communicate or talk to individuals, like going into something as simple as a 7-Eleven, a grocery or 7-Eleven store or whatever, and how some of there can be so disrespectful even with that. But when you go in the store and you ask for help or you need something, she knows to be respectful anyway, but professional, and asking. It's going to go further. They're more apt to help you than you coming here like, hey, yo, can you, whatever. And so there's so many different ways and areas that we have to, from being on the streets, being in the workplace, talking to the customer service. Like there's so many times where you find yourself adapting, and you may or may not even realize it. Even like the example I told you when the young lady called me because she had an issue with her apartment. I was on with the apartment manager, but even when when I was talking to her, my daughter and her, it was like, yeah, give me the information, and we're talking. And I said, well, I'm gonna talk to her, whatever. And then I'm on there talking to the lady. I'm like, okay, so yes, I said, she's a young lady. She's working. She's working hard. This is unacceptable. Her apartment, like that. But before that, it was like, oh no, I ain't going for this. This is not gonna happen like that. Just let me be on the call when you reach out to her. All of that. But then when I got her, I was like, yes. Can you please tell me exactly what? And is there any way that you can, you can make adjustments in her rent for a few days because of this? Yeah, it was. So you change up, and you get more of what you want or need when you adapt to what it is.
So,
We might
Julie,
even do it in our relationships.
Yeah.
well, I don't want to go there today. Let's hold off on that. Hold off on that one. Julie, I want to go to you real quick.
Clutching my pearls.
Yeah, no, not today. Not today. Okay. I'm the only one here and I'm not going for that today. Talk amongst yourselves. Julie, question for you. So when you hear what everybody's saying and what you chimed in as well, being that you're in an acting role right now, right? In your position, how has your normal role that you do as far as how you carry yourself, present yourself on a daily basis, how much have you had to change it in order to get people in line to say, I may be acting, but while I'm doing this job, I'm not acting. You know what I'm saying? What did you have to change?
Not too much on the peer-to-peer, because I think I already had the full respect of pretty much everybody on staff. I've had to change with dealing with mayor and council because I really don't deal with them as much as I've been dealing with them now. And so I had their respect before, but I think I've earned a little bit more now because of the role that I've been in the last 6 weeks and have been told so. But peer-to-peer,
Not an issue.
I think I've been okay. I haven't had to change much. The only thing I've had to really deal with was a lot more personnel issues outside of my shop than I've had to deal in the past, and so that has been the difficulty in how to handle that. But overall, I think everything has been kind of. I had the full respect. I didn't have to earn anybody's respect when put in this role. I think I already had it. At least I know I know I already had their respect, and so I didn't have to fight that battle. Once my boss went out on maternity.
Yeah. So, and we've been talking about code switching. We've talked about women being valued, educated. And Russell Jenkins made a comment that wraps it up. There's a lot of young people that don't know how in order to adapt. I see it every day at work. So in those cases, that's, because with all of us, it's trial and error. You're going to have to learn as you go. Nobody can just tell you it's going to happen because there's going to be resistance. It's going to be, I'm going to be who I am, no matter what the situation is and everything like that. And then when they still see themselves at this level, rather than other folks get at this level, then they start to understand. It starts to kick in. Let's go to something that I think we all can, or you ladies can relate to. And that's going to be Fulton County District Attorney Fonnie Willis. Everybody don't get quiet at once. We've seen everything that she's been dealing with since she's been, not to mention Letitia James up in New York as well. But when she went on the stand, and this other African-American female wrote this opinion piece about her. And this is what she said. And I want to read this before I ask the question, but the opinion piece was titled, Fonnie Willis is an embarrassment to Black people. She's the proof that DEI only hurts us. That was her opinion. And her name is Kyra Davis. But what she said in here, and I want you guys to hear this before I ask this question. Every time someone like me seeks professional advancement, I am forced to wonder how many people in the room think I shouldn't be there before I've even opened my mouth. I will have to swallow offenses I should really be battling because I must battle not only my professional challengers, but the specter of the angry, defiant Black woman who only got her job because she's not white. Now, I read this whole article. I don't agree with nothing she said in there. However, the part that jumped out at me about Fonnie Willis being on the stand, which wasn't a trial, was just to investigate. The angry, defiant Black woman. Now I got 4 Black women here, and I'm not calling any of y'all angry. I ain't calling y'all defiant. I'm not going down that rabbit hole. But I want to ask the question, have you, and how many times have you been looked at, accused of being, because you stood your ground on something, the angry, defiant black woman? Even if it wasn't said verbally, you know it was being said. Let's just go there.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that that stereotype is out there.
Yeah.
It still is. Instead of me, but somebody of another persuasion could deliver the same way you delivered it, and it's okay.
Talk your talk.
But yeah, we stand strong on something, and even in a professional manner, they can still twist it to where it's because of our melanin. It that alone makes it seem like an aggression or angry, just because of that, just because of how we may look. Delivering professionalism the same way as the other person just delivered it, but we're not allowed to have a say or have a strong stance on certain things in certain venues.
Is it that they don't want us to express ourselves with emotion? And that's
probably
what gets you in the point of being called the angry, defiant black woman, because emotionally you're responding to something that's not right. And because you're responding to it in the way that your emotions are exuded, now you're labeled that.
That's possible because of the passion and how passionate you are about what it is that you're standing on. That's possible.
Pamela?
Yes, I have. Believe it or not. A quick incident back when I actually was in my 20s, and I worked in like a secretarial pool. I was the only Black woman, and I was there for 5 years. And promotions, people were being promoted, and I applied for a position, which was promotion, and it was. I knew I should have had the job. I've been there longer than anybody that was supposed to get promoted, and the person was leaving her position, and she even mentioned to me that I would be good at the job, and she was going to put the word in for me. And she was Caucasian. I put in for it, and somebody younger and not as experienced got the job. I was livid even back then. In my 20s, and I did a newsletter and put out, I had access to knowing her background. So I put out a newsletter and I just sent it to everybody in the department. And I got suspended for 2 days, and she still got the position, but I let it be known that this was wrong.
Yeah.
It wasn't right. I mean, the person that was leaving, I knew her job because we worked together on certain things. So I knew the position, and they gave it to somebody that was just totally unqualified. And that's when I realized at that point that this is about Black and white. This is not about your credentials or, what you qualify for.
A newsletter? A newsletter?
I sent it to everybody's mailbox.
Social media. She couldn't have done it.
No. Wait. Time out. Before y'all meet up the only man on this panel, time out. Think about that. 20 years old, mad about a position you didn't get, and you wrote a newsletter rather than just saying, hey, this ain't right.
She put it in paper.
She put it in writing, which was probably worse than just saying it, but that's just me, because if it's in paper and you send it out to everybody. But I'm joking about the fact that it's the newsletter, but think about the level of where we have to go to get our point across when injustices are done against us. You have to go through all these different avenues, and you have to find your own way, because in most times, who's fighting for you?
Right.
If you're not fighting for yourself, there's a lot of people that even look like us. Let's be real. There's people that look like us. They ain't gonna fight that battle for you because they don't want to be labeled the angry, defiant Black woman or Black man or anything like that.
Right.
And Rodney, I'd be interested to know if the roles had been reversed and the other young lady had written the newsletter, would she have been suspended?
It'd have been on Fox News and CNN and everywhere else, more than likely.
Yeah.
Just a thought. Russell Jenkins, I think they are intimidated, and because of that, they feel as if they have no control. Trent Branch, a Black woman's passion is considered angry to her colleagues. So I'll ask you this. Have you ever been labeled an angry Black woman by somebody that looks like you?
I have.
No?
Yeah, probably.
Probably.
Probably undercover.
Yeah, and if I'm angry at the time, I'm okay with that. But anger is an emotion, and it's a fair emotion. We all experience that. Where and how we display it is the question. And if it's in the workplace, we probably want to take emotions out of most of what we do. We're just
because I asked that. Well, let's get somebody is asking the question. T. Reed Stafford, Pam, how would you navigate that same experience now with your wisdom now? What would you tell yourself to do?
I think for me and my personality, I would probably address HR and see what happened, what was going on, and kind of address myself. Maybe it was me. Maybe I got it wrong. But it would definitely be an HR issue and go through the proper channels than doing what I did.
I'd have done it the same way. Type that paper, girl. Type that paper. Type that thing. I know that thing was. but we can.
No, I would have gone to HR.
It would have been one of them typed emails to HR that you don't have somebody read before you send.
Right.
Good answer.
Yeah. And those are the things, and that's a great question by T. Reed Stafford, because here's what we don't really understand is that when we're backed into a corner, we go into survival mode in any situation, whether it's your job, whether you're in your relationships or anything like that. And how you're going to come out of that, it takes a whole lot of retrospective thinking to see where am I going to go with this, or what am I going to do with this. And I laugh about typing out a newsletter, but if you think about it, if she'd have went and expressed herself how it was written and used her own verbiage, number one, it probably wouldn't have came out the same way. Right. I mean, let's be real, because when your emotions involve some words here, there, whatever, and then later on you go back and say, man, I should have said this or I should have said that. But being able to type it out, you actually had a thought through the whole thing that you were trying to do. Now, did it work? 9 times out of 10, most of the time when we do these things, it doesn't work. It doesn't change the scope of what they want to do. But we let our feelings be known of, I don't agree with this. You may agree with it, but I'm gonna let you know I don't agree with it. But with the Fonnie Willis situation, put yourself in her shoes. Now, we know it was a bad judgment to go into some type of relationship during that time or what's going on that big. But love is love, relationships. The flesh is weak. Let's just call it what it is. Flesh is weak. Okay. But with that being said, knowing that you're in this high visibility situation, knowing that the scrutiny that's going to be brought to you about the case, I want to go out on a limb and say, never did she think that her personal life would be this involved in what's going on, even in a bad decision at that time. I mean, you have to take all that into account, but let's think about it this way too. She's been working on this for 2 years. District attorneys need love too. Compassion, companionship, any of those type of things. And I give her the benefit of the doubt because we've all made bad decisions in our lives. It was just a bad decision. But to be labeled the angry Black woman because of how you respond to lies that have been told about you, we've all been there. So with that, let's transition to this. Politics. And I know a lot of you don't like to talk about politics, but I'm going to ask this question for 4 Black women. Are Black women invested in the political process?
For sure. For sure.
Are they?
At the national level, at the local level?
At any level.
I strongly.
Are we truly invested? I mean, because you got some that don't want to talk about politics. They're tired of hearing about politics. And I ask that because when we talk about Black women and we hear the voting block of the Black women could make or break an election. Black women are the most educated demographic in the United States of America, as we read the statistics. Are we, as Black women, fully invested in the process to impose their will on the political process of electing these officials?
Yeah, I think we are. I don't know that we get as much of a voice as we need because we're underrepresented, but I think we are probably one of your more educated and more active populations when it comes to politics. But, I think more representation would help us to have a stronger voice. But we are that generation or that group of people that can make or break a candidate's future.
I think for me personally, I've gotten more into it over the past probably 8 years. But I'm keeping honest, I wasn't always as involved as I should be. I mean, I've always, of course, voted, and I do read up on some things to make, who I want to, but I'm not at the different levels, had not been held as much of an interest as I should have. And as we've seen how things change, like with Obama and then Trump and all that, it just makes you really realize how important things are at a lower level, not just at the president level. And so I'm starting to take more of an interest now than I did before,
I was
So
dragged
I'm
to
a.
the polls as a child, so
Oh, you were dragged to the polls.
yeah, my mom, we had to stand in
Yeah.
lines.
I mean, so I always
My daughter
voted.
goes
Like I
with
said,
me.
I always voted, but it's
Yeah.
not
Right.
just about voting. It's really just really grasping and understanding
Right.
who's in these positions, who could possibly be, the next president, who, just really who could be the next judge, who could be, So I never to that extreme was ever that involved. Like my mother, she can break down all the articles, all the new stuff that's going on, who's this and who said that, and this person. She knows it, lives it, breathes it. So it's really amazing to me that she has that strong of an interest. But like I said, I always voted, but I didn't really have the knowledge that I needed to have that went along with it.
So I'm gonna throw this to Pamela and Julie. The support that we seen when former President Barack Obama was running for president, both times, more the first time than the second time, because there wasn't as much enthusiasm the second time as it was the first time. Can you put a finger on why or what the meaning may be behind why Kamala Harris doesn't get that same support, not only from the Black community, but even from Black women?
I don't even never see her.
You say, Judy, you never see her?
I don't never really see her.
Is that part of the problem, that she's not visible?
I mean, I feel like it, but I mean, you don't always. I mean, I feel like that could be because some people are more visible versus not to say that she's not behind the scenes, and, doing things, which she is doing some things.
She's getting a lot done.
Yeah, she's getting a lot of things done, and so and it might work more in her in her favor to maybe be not invisible, but behind the scenes, like that quiet storm. But for some people, they're visible. They want to see her. Okay, you want to see her, or do you want to know that or do you want to hear about the things later on that she's done to make things better? So
you don't see the vice president as much.
Right.
You don't see that office that much. They're just kind of laying in wait, just in case, right? So they do things, but you don't get to see.
Yeah. And I think some people, I hear people saying like, who is that? Like, where's she been? But she's behind the scenes. She's behind the scenes handling business. She's making moves. Don't think she's not. But I think that some people are visible, especially people that are maybe not as in depth of knowing what goes on or having that involvement, like you just asked. Because you want to see her. Okay, you want to see her. I want to just know she's making moves behind the scenes. I don't have to see you.
Pamela, Julie, y'all want to add to that?
I mean, I think she's getting stuff done. I've gone on her Facebook page, and it seemed like every day or every week she's somewhere different and doing something. And I mean, she works at the pleasure of the president, so whatever his agenda is what she's going to push.
Mhm.
But I think she's undervalued, obviously, and she's a threat because folks are talking about her. So she must be doing something right if she's constantly getting attacked.
Hold on once. Pamela, before you chime in. Julie, you just said something. I'm going to ask this question. You said she's undervalued. In what way?
To Judy's point, people say, well, I haven't seen her. What is she doing? She's doing a lot. I mean, if you pull up her Facebook page and scroll through, she's somewhere doing something every week.
We got to call her.
She's visiting countries. She's meeting with different people. She's at the HBCU. She's everywhere. But I guess that is not being, maybe they're doing a poor job of communicating that to our community. And that's
portraying
it. Or portraying it. Right. And people don't think that she's doing anything, but she's working.
Yeah, let me take this call. Hold on, Judy. Hold 1 minute. Let's get this call real quick. Caller, you're on the show live.
Good morning, yo.
Hey,
good morning, y'all. I'm really enjoying your panel this morning. I'm enjoying everybody. That's on funny. I talked to a family member who knows her. Her father was a brilliant attorney. She is a brilliant attorney. I loved every minute of her on television. She's being held to a different standard because she dares take on these balding white men. That's all that is. She's brilliant. And I hope they leave her on it.
All right.
She's going to get it done.
All right. I know who this is. Appreciate you, Big Al. Thanks for calling in, my brother. That's it. He's out. Hey, he loves some Fonnie Willis. Hey, just call it what it is. But Trent Brand said something. He said, why can't Kamala be seen and do what needs to be done behind the scenes? I agree with that totally. But here's where, and Judy, I'll let you go in a minute, but here's where my question would come into play with that. We're talking about the first Black, African-American, whatever, vice president of this United States. Why would anybody in that administration want to minimize her visuals at this time and what's going on in this country when you have a former President Trump or the people in the Republican Party who are acting the way they're acting? I would think, and this is just me, that you would have her out front portraying that this party, this Democratic Party, is multiracial. We have a female, let's start there, female Black vice president. And I don't think they're using her, and I won't say using, let me put it wrong, I don't want to put it the wrong way, but I don't think they're putting her abilities in the position she holds at the forefront of what they're trying to accomplish. Now, behind the scenes, that's fine. But here's the question. What did we know that Pence was doing behind the scenes? What did we know that Joe Biden was doing behind the scenes? What did we know any of those vice presidents doing behind the scenes? At this point in this time, you need to put a game changer out there in the front, because in my opinion, while they're beating Joe Biden down about what he ain't saying, what he ain't remembering and all these things, that's to fill that void right there. And I don't think they're using it. And one of the most critical people against what Kamala Harris has done, ain't doing, and all that is people that look like us.
Yeah.
It's the people that look like us that have a problem with her being vice president because they don't see her, as Judy mentioned. They don't think she's doing anything. And here's the other part. When you talk about behind the scenes, what happened behind the scenes usually don't get put in front of the scenes, so we don't know. So how to change that?
She's being more vocal now. She's coming out more now because we're coming up on election season.
We're almost 4 years though, Michelle.
Yeah, but
4
if
years.
if she were in the forefront, then that would be going against the grain of what the vice president does. And then she'd be that angry Black woman that's out front.
But ain't it that time though? It's about that time though.
She's out there more. You see her. I see her all the time on some newscast or something about what she's doing. But that's just the role of the vice president. We didn't know who Dick Cheney was until he shot himself. I mean, come on. You don't know what the vice president is doing.
Well, let me ask this question. I'm gonna ask this to somebody that always likes to stay behind the scenes. Miss Pamela, you're comfortable behind the scenes more than you are out front. But if it comes to a time where you have to get out front, don't you think this would be the time, or I think it's past time, but sometimes behind the scenes, I don't know, it can be misconstrued as not anything being done. Especially with us. Let's talk about our people. We're visual people.
Yeah.
You got to show and prove. You know what I'm saying? And the thing is, with Barack Obama, he was the president, so we did see him a lot. We seen Michelle as the first lady more than we've seen probably any other of the vice first ladies in the history. I don't know if it would change anything, but I think it needs to be something that is put out in the front. Go ahead, Pamela.
I was guilty of that when she first took office, and then I started seeing more and her coming to Vegas. So it started to change, my opinion of her role. But a lot of it is media driven. That is not what people want to hear or see. So obviously it's not going to be put out there what she's doing. I hear it, what does she do? Why is she even there? She just, for the position to president. No, that's not true. So I agree with you. I like being behind the scenes, but when you have to come to the forefront, I think it should be done. And I don't know how you control social media, the media, to make that happen because they control everything.
Julie?
I mean, that's why Black media is so important. We need our own platform.
Say that one more time.
Black media, supporting Black media is very important so we can say the things that we need to say to our own community and they can understand it and make it plain.
Yeah.
That's one of the issues because we're not controlling our own narrative.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Fox News is, CNN is, MSNBC is, and they're only going to do what they want to do to a certain extent.
Well, and that's mainstream media. But here's the other part of that, Julie, and I'm glad you said that because there are so many other podcasts like mine that are talking about these issues. But I don't want to put everybody in this bucket, but we're guilty of it. We would rather watch the Ratchet, the Cat Williams 3-hour interview or the Monique 3-hour interview and those type things rather than get involved in what is going to dictate our livelihood going forward. And I'm not saying we should not have entertainment. I don't want anybody to take it that way. But entertainment is for entertainment. It's not the end all to be all. When you start talking about the politics and the things that are being written into law and legislation that we have no clue about until it's finally signed, there's an issue. And then when I come on here, and it's not to blow my own horn, but when I come on here and I talk about these things, people say, well, I never heard about that. But what are you watching? What are you listening to? It's in the papers. It's on the news. Tune in to something that you feel comfortable, even if it's just 1 hour a week, and get an idea of what's going on. But I think we fall short as a community because we don't get involved in the processes at the bottom level to understand where these things come into play. And I asked that question about Kamala Harris only because we're doing a panel with Black women. So the perspective from Black women as far as what they see could be completely different from a Black man, a white woman, because they only see Kamala Harris as a token and a DEI hire. Let's just call it what it is. Because Joe Biden said from the beginning, I will be hiring somebody of color. A woman of color is what he said. And that's what he did. And a lot of people didn't agree with that. But it is what it is. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I help me, y'all.
I feel like her being in this role gave a lot of Blacks and young girls passion, hope, desires. And unless they're a true advocate of hers, where they're actually following her, trying to follow her, see what she's really doing, some of that hope and desire and passion may have dissolved because she's not visible. Mm. And that's needed, I think. For some people, it's needed for her to be visible because she is a woman of color. For some.
Okay. It's a slippery slope. Let's call it, because as Michelle said, the vice president is
Right.
there as a gatekeeper, supporter, whatever you want to call it, more than being out front. But at the same time, when we get in positions like that, I think we need to let ourselves be heard, because we're looking, as a community, we're looking for, as they say, that beacon of hope. That person is going to stand for us no matter what's going on. And I've asked this question before about Barack Obama, and I'm going to ask the same question about Kamala Harris. I said, if Barack Obama was married to a white woman, how different would things have been compared to him being married to Michelle? And I'll ask you the same question about Kamala. If she was married to a black man, how different would she be viewed by our own community if she was married to a black man rather than a white man? A lot of people don't want to have that conversation, but let's be real. When we talk about visuals, when we talk about interracial relationships, we look at things like that. We may not speak on it, but in our minds, it triggers. It's a trigger. And I say that because we all know deep in our hearts, if Barack Obama was married to a white woman, most of those white folks that voted for him wouldn't have voted for him. And they're about to find this out with Tim Scott if he gets the vice presidential nod with Donald Trump. I'm just being real. They show that they act like he's accepted, but they all happy. He proposed to her. It was a big show and everything. Okay. Okay. Racism is alive in this country, and I don't care what nobody says. When they see people in positions of authority married outside of their race, it's an issue of them voting for that person.
Yep.
Unless it's about power.
Yep.
Unless it's about power.
Yeah.
But I went off a little bit. I'm sorry, y'all. Obama would not have become president.
Yeah.
Edward Allen, she locked up a lot of black folks when she was a prosecutor. Yeah. Well, we hold them to a different standard when we say she locked up a lot of black folks when she was a prosecutor. There's a lot of prosecutors lock up a lot of black folks, but they're just not vice president. But we're gonna go. We went over about 120 in, so let's go ahead and wrap this up. But what I want to do real quick is ask this question. I want each of you to chime in on this. If you had an opportunity to go back and tell your 20-year-old self the trials and tribulations and the struggles you would have to deal with as being a black woman through your life, what would you tell her? Let's start with Miss Judy.
I would definitely tell her to stay true to herself. And I think what's important is remember the things that her grandmother and great grandmother taught her. Sometimes when we're in those teaching moments back then, we started to think we don't know everything, but we still feel like they don't really know everything. Or, So I think that really taking the advice, even though, I've done pretty good though, but I would still say taking the advice of our mothers and our grandmothers and really continue those old traditions, holding on to some of those old traditions and paying it forward to our kids. So basically listening.
Okay. Miss Julie?
Probably patience for me. Work ethic has always been good. My dad really instilled that in me and my brother. But I would say patience in just going through the process and not getting frustrated about things. Just stay the course. Would probably be what I would tell my 20-year-old self.
Stay the course. Miss Pamela. Other than the newsletter.
Do you still have a copy of that? Because I would love to see it.
I'd love to see that.
I think for me is it's definitely timing. Everything comes to you when it's due. And to piggyback off of Julie, for me, that's been my life is patience. So I think I just kind of jumped the gun. So I really need to know that everything that's for you is for you. And it's all based on timing. So you have to keep your faith.
And Miss Michelle.
Yeah, so I would tell myself that the journey is going to be difficult. So live your dreams now.
Mm.
Go forward with your dream. That's something that I deferred until now. Right. So,
Yeah.
yeah, go your path, live your dream now.
And I ask that because there's somebody that has a daughter. And Michelle, you have a teenage daughter, but there's a young girl right now that has no idea on how she's going to get out of wherever she's at, what her life holds in front of her, or anything like that. And even when we sit back as men and women and think about everything we've been through, everything we've persevered through, you can go back and tell yourself something at 20. But how many of y'all would listen? We already talked about that. How many would listen? Number one. And then something I always say is, if you go back and change anything in that lifespan, would you be the same person you are today? You know, because there's certain things that we say we would want to change, but it changes a whole lot of other things after that decision. But when we talk about what would we tell ourselves at 20, 25 years old, it's good to have, retrospective thinking on that. But at the end of the day, you are where you're supposed to be, right here, right now. Take advantage of it. Take advantage of each day, and don't squander the possibilities of life. That's the way I would put it. Don't squander the possibilities of life, because every possibility leads to more possibilities. So let's see, who was that? T. Reed Stafford said, I hate that narrative about not Fonnie Willis, I'm sorry. About Kamala Harris being a prosecutor. She said she did her job well as a prosecutor. Trent Branch, I'd like to see Pamela's news letter too. You better dig in there. You better dig it up. Willis Cheney, very, very well done, everyone. Appreciate you, bro, and Big Al. Bravo, y'all. Well, I appreciate y'all tuning in, Miss Michelle, Miss Pamela, Miss Julie, and Miss Judy, Julie and Judy. I appreciate y'all being a part of this. We're going to have y'all back again for another conversation where we just going to talk about, I ain't made a decision yet, but we're going to have a conversation. It goes a little bit where we can have some fun, but also we're going to call some things out. So I appreciate y'all tuning in. Everybody that tuned in today, we appreciate y'all. Also, if you want to be a part of the Soul Sessions, A Black Woman's Perspective, shoot me an email, rwcoolins@yahoo.com. Let me know you want to be a part. We'll let you know when it's going to come up again. And fellas, if you want to be a part of a Black Men's Perspective, let me know, rwcoolins@yahoo.com. We'll be having one of them coming up, and then we're going to do a joint one. So once you, like I always say, no matter what the situation is, let your voice be heard. Say what you mean what you say. And with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up for today. Thank y'all for tuning in. Any last comments, quotes, perspectives before we sign out of here?
Appreciate the opportunity. It's been fun.
Thank you.
Nobody had nothing. No.
Thank you. It's good seeing everybody.
Well, I appreciate y'all. Love y'all. And we'll be back again next week. Holla. Peace.
Bye-bye.